It is Super Bowl week. We are here with a guest star, an ESPN researcher, a good friend of mine, Kevin Pulsifer. Worked a lot with fantasy. He worked a lot with fantasy this whole season. Has been following from a researcher perspective, so he has a lot of good nuggets of information to share with us and some great props. So we're gonna first start talking off. We're talking about the game in general. Let's get some initial thoughts, Kevin, on this whole Eagles-Chiefs matchup.
I think it's going to be a great game. We've seen one seeds make it 14-3, both same record, both top seeds, both I think clearly the best teams in their conferences. You don't always get something like that. Last year, Titans and Packers both lost in the first round of their first games. I think the matchup of the two offenses, two head coaches that are both smart and good at scheming, both on offense and defense. It's a game I've been looking forward to, and it makes it harder to pick when the teams are so evenly matched.
Yeah, and the bye, I feel like the first round bye definitely played a big factor in this with the somewhat new playoff format. Do you think that we did get the two best teams playing here in the Super Bowl, or do you think they just had a favorable schedule, especially to start off the playoffs?
I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously, if you have an injured Mahomes, they're not like the peak Kansas City Chiefs offense that we could have seen. But I think the Chiefs were the top team in the AFC this year, although it was definitely competitive with Buffalo and Cincinnati. The Eagles definitely had a cake schedule. You can't deny that. They may have honestly had the easiest playoff walk to the Super Bowl of any team ever. Right. But that doesn't discount what they did. They still won by 30. You can't just say, oh well, it's easy. Every team that makes the Super Bowl gets lucky somehow. They either get lucky with not having injuries, which the Eagles didn't have. They get lucky with the teams they face. Last year when the Rams made it, they had that 49ers, the defensive back dropped that interception in late third quarter that easily could have changed how things went. Everybody's staying healthy the whole time. We saw what happened to the Rams this year. As soon as Stafford goes down, as soon as Kupp goes down, that team was mostly the same team that won the Super Bowl last year, and then they ended up going 4-13. It doesn't take much to go from the top of the heap all the way down to the bottom. So I think you're going to have a little bit of luck to get there, but these are clearly two of the top teams in the league.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm with you there. I do think it's the two best teams. I wonder, though, since the Eagles did have such a cake walk to the Super Bowl, is that going to play a factor that they didn't really have to show their cards, or they are a little more rested than the Chiefs, who were in two one-score games, and that Bengals game really could have gone either way? Do you think that that's going to play a factor, or since there's an extra week off and you get the whole 2 weeks to prepare, that it nulls that out?
I could see it going both ways. I think having the 2 weeks off, getting the extra time to prepare, it's not like these coaches aren't going to have the guys ready to play. It's not like they're going to be overlook something. They're going to be ready to go. I think having an easier schedule, maybe you get Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott more touches to keep Miles Sanders fresh. I think he's a great play, and I think he's probably underrated in terms of the impact he can have against a Chiefs defense that wasn't great at stopping the run this whole year. You could see maybe the Chiefs jump out to a quick start just because the Eagles haven't faced an offense as good as them yet. But I don't think that happens more than maybe one time Kelsey leaks through the middle and gets out 20, 30 yards. And then they realize, okay, we're here to play now. I don't think it's going to take more than maybe a couple plays to get into the mode of playing in the Super Bowl. They don't need any extra motivation for a game like this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that city doesn't need anything else behind them. You mentioned Sanders, and we're going to bring him up later. But, I agree. He's someone that some say he isn't performing to where he could be, but that's because he hasn't had to. If they're blowing out teams, why would they, tire this guy out when they have two other solid running backs to get the job done? And that just speaks to the depth of the Eagles team, I think. In terms more of the headlines and the storylines, you have the Kelsey brothers and Andy Reid playing his, old team. What are you most looking forward to, whether it be a matchup or one of those storylines?
I think obviously you've got the Kelsey brothers going up against each other, but they're both probably the most pivotal pieces of their offenses. I mean, obviously Jalen Hurts is probably more important than Jason Kelsey, but you think about up the middle, Kelsey protects against Chris Jones, who's going to be the biggest pass rusher on the Chiefs and probably the guy who could actually create the Eagles offense if anybody was going to. So Jason Kelsey up the middle opens up the run game, protects Hurts, which you might need if Hurts is going to scramble more. And then on the other side, I think Travis Kelsey's one of the only guys who's going to be able to do anything against that Philly defense. You got Marquez Valdez-Scantling on the outside. He can't get past Slay and Bradbury. You've got Kadarius Toney and Juju Smith-Schuster. They could play a little bit more in the slot, a little bit more gadget plays. I'm sure they'll get a couple catches, but I don't think they're going to break anything long. Justin Watson's on the other outside. The only people that beat Slay and Bradbury, especially deep this whole season, was Terry McLaurin. Those alpha wide receivers who can go up and get it.
Right.
The Chiefs don't have anybody like that. They can split Kelce out wide, that's fine, but they probably would rather keep him in the middle against a little bit of a weaker cornerback or maybe a safety or a linebacker.
Mhm.
So I think the fact that the Kelce brothers not only going up against each other, but they're like the keys to the game on both
Right.
sides.
Not just two, like secondary players. These are like, they're not extras. They're pivotal in this game. Absolutely.
Yeah, the offense runs through them. It's going to be really cool to see that matchup. To jump the gun a little bit, since we're looking at offenses here, I was listening to the Kelce brothers interview their mom in their podcast, and she said she's rooting for both offenses, obviously, because that's where her sons are playing. Do you think that those offenses are going to have big games, or do you think it's going to be more of the low scoring side?
I definitely think it's going to be higher scoring. The only reason to bet the under would be because Mahomes is a little bit more limited. He's got to throw more short passes to Tony and Juju. Maybe it's a 4-yard pass to Kelce on a quick hitch instead of like a 15-yard seam route. And maybe like all those plays could just take up more time because they're quick passes, tackled inbounds, things like that. If the Eagles take a lead, they start running out the clock. The only way it goes under is if the scoring just happens methodically and then there's just not enough time. Both offenses should be able to succeed. It's just a matter of who can turn those field goals into touchdowns, who converts those fourth downs, maybe even who has the ball last.
And one more question before we move a little more into props. We talked about, the Chiefs pass rush is very competitive, something the Eagles aren't always used to seeing. Where do you see the next step of that being? Is it Jalen Hurts trying to escape the pocket and, running the ball himself? Or do you see that as those are quick throws down to the tight ends and to the running backs? Like what is that pass rush affecting on the Eagles offense?
I think Goddard might stay in a little bit more to block, or it might run more shorter routes in case they do end up having to either scramble or make some quick passes. But the Eagles don't run like a short pass offense. They like to go deep. They like to get A.J. Brown yards after the catch, and then they'll run the ball too. But they're not a team like the Chiefs are almost the exact opposite, where they'll do all those short passes and just kind of move back and forth. And I think Sirianni isn't going to change who he is as a coach to match up with the Chiefs defense. I think he knows that he can run the ball the way he wants to run it, and he hopefully can pass the ball the way he wants to pass it. I don't think he's going to change the style of play. So if they hit the big plays early, they'll be able to lean more on the run game. And if they don't hit the big plays early, then they'll have to focus on the run game later or keep opening it up and hope that the deep shots eventually happen.
And those deep shots are courtesy of Las Vegas, something that we can bet on. There are thousands of bets, prop bets specifically, that you can place on Sunday when the Super Bowl comes around. So let's get into a few of them. I know both of you have mentioned Kelce, Sanders a little bit. Kenz, is there a specific player prop before we get into the fun stuff like the national anthem that you're looking at on Sunday that you just automatically love?
We talked about it before. It's still Miles Sanders for me. I'm going to take him to be the leading rusher. I mean, if you look at the competition on the other side, Pacheco and McKinnon, they've been receiving the ball.
Yeah.
If you look at their last game, I mean, they are crushing their rushing yards with their own passing yards, so to me, that there's no threat over there. I think his biggest threat is Jalen Hurts.
I agree with that, yeah.
But I think he'll be focused on throwing those deep balls like we were saying and beating that young secondary from the Chiefs, or he's scrambling for those short throws. So I really like him in that spot. We've talked about it before and how they like to rest him when they need to, but they're going to need to use him this whole game. This might be one of the first games in a while that they need him 100%. So we haven't seen that in a while. And what else is there to lose? You're in the last game of the season. What the hell? Just throw it all out there.
Yeah,
I'm completely with you on that. I think we've seen Kenny Gainwell. He's pulled off some big runs. They use him on third down a lot, and I think if they do fall behind, he'll end up stealing the show a little bit. Right. But like we said, like Sanders is the lead guy on that team. The only other guy that I would be worried about is Hurts. And Hurts is a prolific runner. He's a great scrambler. He's so athletic. But his yards per carry aren't where like Lamar Jackson's are, where Kyler Murray's are, not even where Daniel Jones was. He had a lower yards per carry than Daniel Jones this year. Yeah. Because he runs so often, teams are ready for it. So he's going to get his 5, 6, 8 yard gains, and they'll get first downs, and they'll be efficient with it. But he's not the type of guy. I think he had one like 40-yard, 50-yard run on one of those primetime games. But other than that, he's more just getting the first downs going down, especially with the shoulder. I don't think he's going to try and push it too much. If he gets the first down, it's let's go get 1st and 10. Let's go get 2nd and short again. So I think Miles Sanders is the guy that they will probably rely on the most. And if there's somebody that can get to the second level and have one of those 20 attempts, like 120-yard games, 2 touchdowns, it's going to be Sanders or nobody. So I'm all on board with that.
How about an anytime touchdown bet? I'm going to ask both of you guys this question. Who is one player that you think has great value or is just going to be find himself in the end zone come Sunday?
I think probably Kadarius Toney is the best like mid-tier play. He's not a super long shot, but he's not one of those like Kelsey bets where it's like minus 130.
Right.
I think he's like around plus 300. But I mean, definitely look at all the books, find the best line for whichever guy you like, because there's going to be a lot of different lines out there. With MVS being outside, Justin Watson outside, we already know that Mecole Hardman is out. We don't know what to expect from Sky Moore. He got a couple more targets after Toney went down, but if Toney's healthy, he's out there. Since they can't throw outside, it's going to be Kelsey and gadget plays, and we know how they like to run those gadget plays in the red zone. It's either going to be McKinnon, Pacheco, or Toney scoring on those little dump passes like that. And here's the best part: if Toney is hurt and he doesn't play, the bet voids. You don't have to worry about him getting hurt. The line's priced in to include the fact that he might not be 100%, but if he's out there, they're going to try and get him the ball whenever they can.
Yeah,
I agree with that. So Kevin has a Chiefs player. Ken's, you're the Philly girl. Let's get a Philly anytime touchdown bet.
Say less, Taft. If we want to go value, I like Dallas Goedert at plus 175. The Chiefs allow passing touchdowns. Like they just do. They allow the fifth most passing touchdowns to tight ends. And it's not even about him being a tight end. Goddard in general this postseason has been getting a lot of looks in the red zone. I think it's something that everyone's thinking about. Obviously, I think Kelsey is going to score a touchdown. I'd love that in a parlay with Hurts or AJ Brown or whatever. But he's one of those sneakier names that I think certainly has a chance of getting in the end zone this weekend.
Y'all got the good value, so I'll just go ahead and add one more to top on to this 3-leg anytime touchdown parlay. Jalen Hurts, 4th and goal from the 1-yard line. You can't stop it.
You can't stop the QB sneak.
It's minus value, but I'll take that any day, especially if we are going to get a high-scoring game, like you said, Kevin. So those are the serious props. But the best part about the Super Bowl is that we can literally bet on anything. So, Kevin, I know you have some stuff up your sleeve. Go ahead and just lay it on us.
Okay, so first one, we'll start easy. First quarter, I like the under. You can get it at 10. And the last 20 years, here's been the first quarter totals. 10, 10, 10, 0, 12, 0, 10, 0, 8, 10, 9. And it's just more of that for the last 20 years.
Wow.
The average is under 7 in the last 20 years. There's only been 3 times where it's gone over 10. And there's only been 2 games where there were multiple touchdowns scored in the first quarter. One of them included the Devin Hester kickoff return to literally start the game.
Yeah.
And another one was a pick 6. So you might get a lot of pushes. 10 is like an easy number. So I wouldn't take 9.5. There were a lot of 10s in there. Okay. But teams, even the aggressive teams, even the aggressive coaches that like to go for it and push it, they're not going to want to make that mistake that puts them behind the gun immediately. So I think it starts slower. Mahomes runs a couple gadget plays, couple of first downs. Hurts runs the ball a couple times. Start out slow. You only have maybe 3 possessions in that entire first quarter. The defenses are good enough, especially the Eagles defense, to either hold them to a field goal or just allow the 1 touchdown. I don't think we're going to see any big plays, especially now that the Chiefs don't have Tyreek Hill.
This is true.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a big factor in there. I think that the Chiefs have kind of fallen back on Tyreek Hill in their Super Bowl or just playoff pushes in the past. So it'll be interesting to see what his absence does because, I mean, this is the first year Patrick Mahomes really hasn't had that go-to guy to give the ball to. So that should be an interesting factor, especially with Mecole Hardman. Got to shout out the dog.
Oh,
perfect time.
This is Ollie.
Hello,
he's the best boy, but he also likes to be the center of attention. So clearly he heard me talking and was like, I need to be here.
We know Ollie's ready for Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh, absolutely.
And who's not? Keep it going, Kevin. That was a great way to start us off, and I'm betting that right now as you give this next one.
Okay, so next one, you can bet on who's going to throw the first challenge flag, and for me, it's Andy Reid without a doubt. He doesn't really care about saving his timeouts. Eagles fans know exactly how good or bad he is at clock management. He's thrown 4 challenge flags in his last 3 playoff games. And he routinely throws them during the season. Sirianni hasn't thrown one at all in the 3 playoff games so far, and he didn't throw a single challenge flag on offense this year. So you can get him close to even odds. I think the Chiefs might have been like minus 110, but give me Reid threw 2 in last game. And obviously you need refs to make a bad call or things to happen that way, but it's just an easy bet to root on challenge. Like challenges and replays slow down the game. They're annoying sometimes, but why not throw a little bet on it and say, hey, I think Andy Reid doesn't care about the timeouts as much. Sirianni is much more methodical. He's going to think about saving the timeouts, make sure he's going to save it for the right moment. I wouldn't be shocked if Andy Reid throws one in the first half.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that because we were both big on Andy Reid to call the first timeout, but there's definitely better value with the challenge flag. I think Andy Reid first timeout is now like minus 150 on Caesars. I don't know where it is everywhere, but I like that angle better. But the Andy Reid first timeout, he has called the first timeout in 15 of the 19 games this season. And it's not like Sirianni's trying to beat him there. He's only called the first timeout 7 times. So, you're right. He doesn't care about wasting these timeouts. Sirianni's really not into doing that. He doesn't throw a lot of challenges. But the only situation I could see Sirianni calling it first is it's his first Super Bowl. He's got a young team. Maybe there's a chance they go down and they need that first timeout. But all the numbers point to Andy Reid throwing the challenge flag, calling the first timeout.
Yeah.
Yep. There was an article out there. I forget where I read it. But they haven't had to waste a timeout on offense because the play clock was running down. Jalen Hurts is smart enough to either audible and make up his own play, or just do a quarterback run, or is smart enough to call his own play in the huddle. I don't think they've had to burn a timeout for that reason yet. And I don't necessarily think Patrick Mahomes will either, but it's not something where you're going to see a random fluky timeout. It's going to be something serious. Like it's going to be a 4th and 3 at the 35, and they're going to have to say, we need to call a better play. That's the only time Sirianni is going to use an early one,
right?
Is if it really matters that early, which if we're just talking first timeout, I don't know if that's going to be, I wouldn't want to count on that.
Yeah.
Sirianni, to that point, is definitely more analytical with his first half scheming in terms of saving those timeouts for the last 4 minutes of that half to maybe do like one last drive, last possession of the half bet. So I definitely am going to ride y'all there. So squad ride on the first challenge flag and the first timeout.
And Sanders.
And just to throw that in, you said 15 out of 19 games this season, Andy Reid has called the first timeout. He uses timeouts in the first half like he eats cheeseburgers. I think that's a no-brainer there.
Yeah.
Yep. Use them or lose them. But I think you just said, Taft, about the Sirianni being aggressive and analytically minded. I've got another prop that's based on the same thing.
All right, lay it on us.
Longest made field goal, Chiefs. This one's like minus 120, minus 130, so it is a little bit more juice. But just think about every time 4th down comes up, you're assuming Hurts is going to go for it. If it's 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, it's going to be a run. But even on those 4th and 5s, not 4th and long necessarily, but they like to go for it. They know that it's smarter too based on the stats and the analytics, and they have the team to be able to do it.
Right.
The Chiefs kicked 8 more field goals this season. They kicked 7 more from 40 plus. So this is the longest made field goal. I like Butker's leg a little bit more than I like Elliott's. Elliott's got a hell of a leg, but they don't need to use it most of the time. The Eagles had 7 field goals that were at least 42 yards, 7 attempts from 42 yards or more this entire season. One of them was heading into halftime. One of them was heading into halftime with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. A third one was with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. 2 came in the Eagles' last game of the season against the Giants when Hurts was not 100% and the game didn't matter. So it was like 16-0. They went up to 19 and then 22 when it got closer. And then another one was in the 4th quarter against the Packers. They went up 2 scores late in the 4th, where that actually matters to get the 3 instead of going 0 or 7. Like they wanted to get up 2 scores. So there's only been one time all year where they actually had to decide between do we go for it or do we kick a relatively long field goal, where they actually kicked. So I just don't see them. There's obviously a chance that they're 4th and 9 at the 30, and it's like, okay, there's a 47-yarder. There's no need to go for it there. But that offense has been smart and efficient enough all year, and Sirianni trusts his guys. I don't think he's kicking anything longer than 40, 45, unless the situation that's the only option there.
Yeah.
Whereas Andy Reid, depending on how Mahomes looks, you never know. I think there's just a lot more options for Butker to kick a longer field goal.
What's that value at?
I think it was minus 125 or minus 130. I saw it different on DraftKings and FanDuel, which are the 2 books I use the most. But unless that gets up past 150, I think I would still take it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was telling Taft, everything's not legal here, obviously. I'm going home Friday just to be with my family for the
and to fire up some books.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait, I can really do this.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited to be in the city. I can't decide if I want to go to the city or just my dad's paying to fly me home, so I feel bad if I go all the way home and don't watch.
It's just to leave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so either way, I'd rather be surrounded by Philly fans where people don't hate us. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Philly, I actually worked for the Eagles game day staff for
Oh,
one
really?
season.
I didn't
So
know that.
I had to go dig this up a little bit, but during grad school it was just a little side hustle. Just worked in the aisles, did some pregame, postgame stuff. So
Right. That's cool.
First real sports experience there outside of just like school stuff.
Right.
So go Birds.
Go Birds.
Oh gosh.
I'm also a Jets fan, so I haven't had anything to root for in the playoffs for a very long time.
Yeah.
Am I outnumbered here?
Maybe.
I might be. Well, while we're talking about the Birds, let's go ahead and get into the game picks. Kevin, I know that you have a lean here. Maybe not touching the spread. Are we going to ride with the Birds hat, or was that a prop to put it on your head after you pick them? What way do you see this game going?
It's very tough, and I'm not sure I'm going to bet on the game because I think I can enjoy my rooting for the props that I'm taking and then just enjoy what's happening because I don't have a lot riding on it. But if I had to pick, I think I would take the Eagles. They're both elite offenses. I think Kansas City is number one offense this season. Philly's like 2 or 3. But the Eagles are the top defense, and the Chiefs, they were good, but they were not elite. They weren't a shutdown team. When you think about like what teams are drafting for now, they're drafting obviously quarterbacks first, but then you've got wide receivers and cornerbacks, and you've got offensive line and defensive line. And I think offensive line, Eagles, defensive line, Eagles, wide receivers, Eagles, cornerbacks, Eagles. Like obviously Travis Kelce is used as a receiver, and he's a huge part of the game. He's going to be the biggest weapon the Chiefs have to use. And you can basically count him in that group. But Dallas Goedert's not a nobody either.
Yeah.
So I just think just look at all sides of the ball. The Eagles they have a deeper team. They're more successful at a lot of different things. And if it does come down to the quarterbacks, there's a chance that Mahomes is still limited and we don't see the best version of him. So I think if I had to, I've got to go Eagles here. And if I'm going to do it, I'll take them to cover. 1.5 points is nothing. There hasn't been a single Super Bowl that was decided by less than 3. Right. When it gets down to 1 or 2, teams are going for 2. They're going for the tie. Right. They're going to play like I'm not worried about that 1 point in the middle. If I'm taking the Chiefs, I'm taking the Chiefs to win outright. If I'm taking the Eagles, I'm taking the Eagles to cover. Get the little bit of extra juice where you can. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, echo everything you say, and you're right. I mean, the offensive line and defensive line, they're both just so much more talented. It's just you can't when you have that great of an offensive line and a defensive line, and you have those wide receivers, like the depth on that team is absolutely insane, and they're just healthier. And that, to me, like leave it there. You have a healthier team, a better offensive line, a better defensive line. Yeah. That wins games to me.
If you wanted to play into the MVP vote, like. If it's the Chiefs that win, it's going to be Mahomes. There's not really anybody else. Maybe Kelce if he catches 2 touchdowns, like Cooper Kupp did last year. Right. But that's the only other option. He is the entire team there. On the Eagles, like it's probably going to be Hurts, but maybe it's Miles Sanders getting 2 touchdowns. Maybe AJ Brown gets 2 touchdowns. Right. Maybe Hassan Reddick or Josh Sweat get either a fumble return for a touchdown or just get 2 or 3 sacks. Yeah. There's so many different options there for Eagles MVP. That just means that their team is so much more well-rounded and they can stop you in any different way. I don't expect the Eagles to win in a rout, but if anybody was going to, it was going to be the Eagles. I don't see a way that the Chiefs are up 21-7 in the third quarter. I think it could be a close game down to the wire. That's probably what most of us are expecting, and it's going to be exciting if it is.
Yeah.
But I'll take all my bets on Philly if it comes down to the wire.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and make it official. This is an Eagles pod. I'll take Eagles to cover 1.5 points. Go Birds. Kenz will be in place. She'll be holding down the fort. I just think, like, on top of everything you guys said, the one key standout here between both teams' offenses and defenses are that Chiefs run defense. And I think that if the Eagles can establish the run early, it's really just going to open up the pass game for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, maybe to get some man coverage exposures there. So birds all the way around. However, before we wrap this up, there's one debate that we need you to settle, Kevin. We have been going back and forth about the national anthem. Kenz has, well, we're not even going to tell you which sides we have. Chris Stapleton, over under 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Please settle this for us one last time.
I'm going under here. I'm not as confident in this as I am with some of my other picks, but I got to go under.
I love it. I think
when you've got recording artists, guys who are used to performing, and they're playing their own songs normally, I think you're going to go a more traditional route. I don't think he's going to hold on some of these notes. I don't think he's going to extend it too long. The anthem itself already isn't a 2-minute song, so you've already got to draw it out to get even close to 2:05. It depends on maybe when they say the official song ends. Sometimes it's at the end of the last word. Sometimes it goes if there's any music trailing afterwards. I don't know, but I think I'm just going to go under. I think people like to think it just they hear the drawn out words and everything like that, but nobody's ever timed the anthem. The only time anybody ever times the anthem is during the Super Bowl. So it's not like you have a frame of reference to say like, oh, 155 is fast or 155 is slow or 2:05 is this. I think it's another thing where when in doubt, take the under.
I agree. I'm on
Blame.
under as well. Do you want to defend yourself before we wrap it up?
All I have to say is if there's a guitar involved, you guys are screwed. That's it.
You might
he comes in with that guitar, just draws out a note or two at the end, at the beginning. I mean,
solo.
That's a sneaky pick. If he plays for like 10-15 seconds before he starts singing.
That's what I'm saying. If there's no guitar, I accept defeat. But if there's a guitar, I have a chance here.
Yeah, he's not dragging it out late at the end, but you could see, depending on when they start that clock.
Yeah.
If he starts in with a little bit of guitar, I could see that happening.
Yeah.
I'll still take the under, but you got me in on that a little bit.
Okay.
I like it. Thank you for backing that up. We just need.
Yeah. I think that's everything. We clearly all like the birds. We have a couple fun props to go along with that. Very excited for Sunday. Thank you, Kevin, for bringing in your great information as always. And we will see you all after Sunday.
Go Birds.
Birds.
I
Thanks,
can't
guys.
even have to do it.